Done. And done. Alright. Alright. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh, let's go. Oh, let's go. Hey, Shirley, hello. How we doing? Oh, let's go. Alright, time to get some coffee going. Balcony. There we go. Alright. Get the water. Get the water. Here we go. And there we go. Alright, water in progress. No, it just was a bit too much oblivioning going on. A bit too much oblivioning. That's pretty much it. And nice, really nice. And the super nice weather. Let's see, I got some more snow. Got some more snow. I'm not sure how it's gonna be that spring going there. Oh yeah, they're gonna need Vietnamese. I don't have milk left. Cut the hair up to make some interview pictures, then son. No, I just need to wash it basically. That's pretty much all there is to it. That's pretty much all there is to it. No secret with that. But no secret with that. And the look of insane six head. The insane six head. The short hair. And the bald hair. When the time comes to that. So I usually go to conventions and stuff. Oh, the ponytail is a bit more convenient. A little bit. A little bit. There we go. Got him. I got him. Alright. Oh, we get the bees then. Gonna get that milk for next week. Next week off gonna be Thursday only. And Saturday. So I'll need to have some of that. Some of that milk. Some of the supply for the next week. There we go. Gonna order some. See, tomorrow's gonna be a whole bunch more of Tudin. That's gonna be tomorrow. And then Tuesday's gonna be Atomic Hearts already. Seems like they actually got a decent release times and everything. So I'm gonna be able to start it on the day it is out. Do it full day. Then another day. We'll see when I will find time for more Unity adventures next week, though. Not sure yet, not sure. Because your day off will be a little weird next week. Could just do it on Wednesday, I guess. That's gonna be less Atomic Hearts, though, then. We'll see. I'll need to think about it. That might be an option, though. It's not even guaranteed if I'm gonna be, you know, super into it. But I'm probably at least gonna finish it. And just to get the full idea of the story gonna be. Not sure if I'm going for a bunch of side stuff. Probably none of that. A bare minimum. Probably. And give chat enough time. Well, I mean, you will have like Tuesday past midnight. Yeah, no. Or like Monday past midnight, rather, I guess, into Tuesday. All that time until morning when they're gonna go in. I guess I'm probably gonna go at like kind of slower pace anyway. Like Tuesday might be full stream, maybe. Maybe. And then after that, might slow down a bit. Get the coding on Wednesday. And then Thursday I'll be off. This whole day's here, gonna meet with parents. And relatives from another city coming to visit. Not visiting me, thankfully. But, you know, still gonna meet. And then on Friday, I guess, kind of half a day before First Look Friday. And then Saturday, I'll be off. I'm gonna be hanging out with friends. Maybe some of the peeps that I haven't seen in like a year arriving. Well, actually pretty much a year. Probably like spring last year, I think, was it? Imagine playing that. I mean, it kind of depends. I have a feeling it might be just something that is like better to just watch, just to see, you know, the art part and everything, because I don't know, I just don't think it's gonna be anything super crazy in terms of gameplay. You'll be able to make some sort of like, you know, skill-based build instead of like shooting, but, you know, level into more skill stuff or whatever there is, gadgets and everything. That would be nice. BioShock is worth playing. I mean, I'm gonna be, you know, a little bit on the hot take, but yeah. The best part of BioShock for me was just like the story stuff. That's it. Gameplay, I even like ditched the first BioShock. Like 75% in or something. When I first was playing it on hard difficulty, I also thought like gameplay maybe is good. Game's legendary, let's do it. Got into hard difficulty and like around 75 I was just like sleeping already. So I just kind of flushed it. And then at some point I was like, you know, well, the new one is coming. I probably should finish the first one. So I don't remember, did I pick up the save file or just start a new one? But yeah, I did finish it. But yeah, I wasn't really a huge fan of the gameplay, you know. And even if the story you take like first game alone, it's kind of good. Like the premise is good, but the story itself kind of like. There's like 2 even more. 2 I actually kind of like gameplay wise though. Like something about shooting or something in 2, or like how the fights and everything were directed felt better. Alright, come on. Some Yu coffee. That's usually the difference when you make Vietnamese with like fresh coffee. It just takes forever to soak through. Which, I mean, not particularly in a rush right now. It's almost in though. Almost started there. Let's press it this way. There we go. Now it's going. Infinite was kind of like a little bit better in all departments, but still like it's all shining when you have the whole global picture. Like when you play first Infinite and all the DLCs and all that just kind of wraps up, then that's when it's like Pog. Well, I guess Infinite Story and stuff is also kind of a little bit better just because it has like more stuff going on. The first one is just basically kind of like a one plot twist reliant, let's put it that way. Like after that plot twist, you kind of like, and that's kind of it. Hooray, let's go. Let's get the one and only, the Giga Horse, the Hooded Horse article. How indie publisher Hooded Horse aims to do right by developers. Indie publisher Hooded Horse specializes in certain genres and takes a strong tact in marketing to niche players. And they are pretty good at that shit, that's for sure. Strategy simulation, a role-playing genre, is huge on PC. That is the news for anybody who scrolls through Steam for a while or has been playing video games for a decade or two. But its size means it can be tough for a game to make an impact, especially as an indie developer. When you don't have the backing of a publisher like Private Division, in the case of Kerbal Space Program, or the brand recognition of something like Civilization, how can you get people to find your game? Just like with any other genre, I feel like. I don't think strategies are any more complicated. If anything, I feel like strategies and simulators especially, look at what Playway is doing. Like, in a simulation of anything, there's instantly like a bunch of people who are interested. Strategies, I feel kind of also like people are very starving. Like any like city builder, any colony manager, there's like instantly just like people checking that out already. There's a very like exquisite audience though, I have to say, with refined tastes and everything though. So not sure if it's super easy, but I think discoverability is not really much more different and complicated with other genres. Hooded Horse is a small indie video game publisher that was founded in 2019. Since grown to have around 20 titles under its belt, while still touting a team of just 12 people at the time of this writing. Like many other indie publishers, it has a singular focus, choosing to double down on strategy, simulation, and role-playing games. Yeah, it like makes sense because like cross-promotion is more effective when you just have one sort of games being published. Right now, it looks to be a good fit. CEO Tim Bender and President Snow Rui sat down with game developer recently to talk about their plans for 2023. Spoke about how their love of those games propels them to not only market and publish games, but also to understand them. Each person on the team has a specialty and the genre they have an affinity for. Rui prefers turn-based tactical games, while Bender says he enjoys strategy games that are halfway to being RPGs. That all helps the company successfully publish games like Against the Storm, Terra Invicta, or the upcoming historical sim Manor Lords. Yeah, Against the Storm was probably a blast for them. And one thing that we constantly see in marketing, as sort of a misstep with others in the marketing of strategy games, is that it's done by people who don't understand strategy games. They stress the wrong things that don't connect with players. Being gamers ourselves and really understanding the types of games that we are trying to market, we can identify the right things to focus on, which really speaks to the players. Okay, so you understand games, now what? Obviously, understanding games, your marketing isn't the all in and all, be all and end all. You still have to give a game you are publishing marketing attention to increase sales. Hooded Horse starts the process by giving each game the same amount of attention. Of course, if a game suddenly becomes super popular, it might need some extra time. But Bender says that no game gets left behind. Says the company guarantees a minimum spend of $100,000 on each game for advertising and other marketing costs. Next step is ensuring discoverability. Steam, where a lot of Hooded Horses games live, is often inadequate, with a discover queue that isn't fine-tuned enough for players' actual recommendations. During my call with Hooded Horse, I checked out my queue only to find it was pushing games that had a narrative but little else. I mean, I guess, kinda. Hooded Horse doesn't get around that, but it does work within the system. For example, it greatly utilizes the store page to flesh out as much detail as it can on a game. More information it can give the player on what the game is about and what it can offer, the better. Also put out demos as quickly as possible and choose screenshots that carefully show off gameplay, all in the name of honesty about what a game is. Well, as we can see, with strategy games especially, you really want to be super honest about that. Well, with any game really, because we also saw something like Scorn, for example, right? But with strategy games, there is a lot of people who can come for one thing, and then without getting it being mad. Helps that the games tend to have similar audiences or are cross-marketable, according to Bender. They might fall into separate subgenres like city builder or tactical real-time strategy game, but some can potentially appeal to the same players. Focusing on that built-in audience instead of trying to find a whole new one keeps the game targeted directly at those who will actually buy it. You can have a little bit more trouble getting exposure in some of the wider ways that you reach players. So instead you focus in on that niche and you get the whatever exposure you can, but you really focus on cross-pollination across the game, among the games. Hood Horse also utilizes the tools at their disposal. For example, there are 6 team members that are streamers and influencers, so they can target that space. So they have like their own in-house streamers. Well, the team works to target existing audiences. They have 2 Japanese influencers on staff to help with selling games in that region. We find that Japan is a very, very important market for strategy games. It's been sort of, long ignored with many strategy game titles not localized into Japan because there's been some false assumptions they don't like strategy games. But all of those are false assumptions. Japan has actually been somewhere around 5% of our units sold. It's like 6 team of 12 people, and they have 6 team members that are all streamers and influencers. Interesting. So that's kind of like even more of a dang strategy. They're not just like having some quality influencer marketing people. They actually have the whole fucking streamers on board. I wonder who's the person. I think that one is influencer marketing, though, person that contacts me on the games and everything. But maybe they also stream. Hooded Horse is a small team, so hyper-focus is almost mandatory, but it's also benefited their games, which continue to sell well for their genre, and even beyond them. Manor Lords, a historically accurate medieval sim and city builder created by one developer and set to hit early access this year, shot into the top wishlist games on Steam after Steam Next Fest. At the time of this writing, it's number 6 on the global top wishlist chart, according to SteamDB, which puts it right under Hollow Knight Silksong. These kinds of games are doing well according to Bender because they offer innovative mechanics and can take risks that the AAA studios aren't. And Hooded Horse understands that power. There's a genre where we're going to see projects be on par with the best funded projects from the most established studios. And as an indie publisher, that's really exciting and is one of the main areas why we want to be in this type of a game. Publishers can do right by developers. More than anything, Ruin Bender stressed how Hooded Horse works to change the broken and sometimes exploitative standards in indie game publishing. They're really taking risks? Oh, you mean like with the town builders and stuff like this? I mean, they do kinda. They do. Like, look at, for example, as I said, like, look at all those, like, kind of like hybrid genre games, right? When it's like not just RTS, just strategy or something, but the mixture. And then you have an issue when, people come for RTS, they're not getting enough RTS, they're mad. People coming for the city builder, they're not getting enough city builder, they're mad. So in the end, everyone's mad, and just because you try to like mix something in the proportions that weren't really like, hitting it right, and then you weren't really like that, how do you say, clear and like well written with your copy on the Steam page to explain people, yo guys, it's not exactly RTS and not exactly city builder, it's something in between. But then like none of those groups gonna play it already, so it's just gone. Hey Jingle, hello. Same strategy game with a different theme? I wouldn't really say so. Like, for example, the Against the Storm is completely different. Against the Storm is a very unique take on that. One of the first ones. Manor Lords maybe is not super, like, crazy different compared to other ones. But what it does is, like, insane visuals, though, right? Like, the visuals are actually insane. While everything else is maybe kinda like in every other game, but it just looks good. And that's by one person. So you already saw yesterday how much time and brain capacity it takes to a person, even with like a group of people assisting in chat, to even make like two fucking squares do things on the screen. Now imagine you get something this graphically advanced, and that is actually running good too. Like, it's quite well optimized with such graphical fidelity. So that's the risk. Like, you kind of like you put a lot of effort into something that maybe not gonna work. Like, that's the risk in case of Manor Lords. It didn't go like just your average pixel art city builder or something, right? It just went ham for one person. For one person, that's a risk. Terra Invicta, for example. Terra Invicta, like, you can check that one. That's a risk, man, to do something like this. That is a huge risk. Because like it's insanely 5-head game, like on a whole other level. Like I would say it's like higher than some Paradox games levels, to be honest. Maybe not in terms of like depth, maybe it's kind of like comparable in terms of 5-headness, but like how much stuff you do, how UI works and everything, it's like super 5-head shit to just digest it. Like way harder to digest than any Paradox game. That's a risk to put something like this out, and they did it actually for a pretty solid price, and it does good. So that's the risk too. It's like the risk in this genre is not like some maybe like crazy mechanics and stuff, even though some are. Like Against the Storm is quite unique, but it's more about like the scope of the game based on like the studio that is making it. When they hit, yeah. I'm not sure exactly like all of their projects actually. There might be some, your average pixel art, like city builder stuff. There probably are some. Wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, they do a lot of kind of like different things there going on. And else was there it actually mentioned some of them. Well, actually it mentioned everything I already mentioned myself. Against the Storm, Terra Invicta. What else was there? Yeah, Manor Lords. Yeah, these are like kind of like the biggest ones, really. Yes, yeah, pretty much, pretty much. It's like the risk for developer is kind of big. For publisher is also kind of like for publisher, I don't know, for publisher I feel it might be a bit easier just because, you know, you can, as I said, like people like are really hungry for this type of games, just like with simulators, right? You just kind of like take a little different twist on something. You just like strategy, but you do like, you know, some other stuff. And market it well, and people will buy it, and it's going to be profitable, most likely. And people also kind of like noticing it already, though. Like, what was that? The Urbex City or whatever, I don't remember. The simulator also, the those pixel art and everything. Also really good reviews and stuff, but people already were like, well, you know, it's just kind of nothing new. It's kind of like any other one, just pixels and stuff. You will need to have a good game to sell it like Evolve. The Evolve is a debatable one, though. Evolve, you can ask many people, like, I mean, people revived Evolve with private servers, and a bunch of people, including streamers, were just playing that. Like, I don't think you, like, problem with Evolve was different. It wasn't a bad game or something. That wasn't the problem. There are different examples that could be better of selling something bad, for example. But still, it's like to market something, you need to have something that people will play. It's like there is a difference also, right? Like some people in game development, there is also like different kind of like angles, I guess, on the situation. Is like uh, some people go like you just need to market like whatever, like you can market whatever, right? Like you just like make something and then like market it. But then there's also this like point that, you know, you need to make something that people want, because you can market something, but like if no one wants to play it, then it doesn't matter how good your like marketing is and stuff. If the game is like not catching and shit, then like no one's gonna play it. Like if it doesn't have audience, then people just gonna, no matter how much you market, right? Like if you put like some like I don't know, like fucking 1 meter diameter like bot plug, and you market it everywhere, and it will be everywhere in every sex shop and stuff too. I don't think there's gonna be a huge amount of like audience for that, because you probably will use that once, and then yeah, then you don't need anything else anymore. So that there will be like some natural interest, except for maybe some people who will be just curious to try it, you know. But that's pretty much it. Yes, yeah, sir, I see. Yeah, I don't think it was the problem with the Wolf is not even like trying to sell it. They made it free later, and it still kind of slowly went down, but it still was good. And those people who managed to like, you know, to feel it, like that was exactly the thing. Like it had a very niche audience, but they marketed it to everyone. So they ended up like not even getting a lot of people interested, only that niche audience, but they went very, very hard with marketing. So they spent a lot of money on that budget, and they ended up getting only a very small audience of people who were actually into it. But those who were actually into it, they were like into it very hard. And as I said, like there were servers just being reborn recently with like I remember Lyric, like a bunch of other streamers were just playing it because like it's a fun game. And more than anything, Ruin Bender stressed how Hooded always works to change the broken and sometimes exploitative standards of it in indie game publishing. The big thing is how it wants to change the practice of how the publishers have to recoup 100% of costs on a game before developers see a dime. Yeah, that happens. That happens. That's what we read about. What was the name? The one that I wanted to play too. The postmortem, dude. A few days ago, I also even like stumbled upon that one. Forgot the name. I could find later if needed. Maybe I'll remember later. I think Steve maybe remembers. He also said he wanted to play it. What was the name of that one, dude? It's like somewhere here, but I forgot. Like it got the publisher, got money from the publisher, and the publisher just like you got solid chunk of money from the publisher, but then you forget about anything until publisher makes the money back. And that's their contract there. So if a game doesn't do well, which could be traced back to a publisher not giving it... yeah, kinda, yeah. Kinda, Seeds of Civilization or something, right? That one. It doesn't do well, which could be traced back to publisher not giving it enough attention or failing to market it properly. Which in case of Kainga, judging by postmortem that we read from developer, that was pretty much the case, because they didn't get that much out of it. I mean, they did get $200,000 on development, right, of that stuff. But there was like not a lot of marketing being done. Publisher will still potentially make money, but developer will suffer. It's a great model for publishers, but it's a terrible model for developers because it constantly traps the majority of developers into a cycle where they're not only not getting good results from a game, but they might not make any money from the game. That model has become way too accepted within the industry. Well, all of its games have been successes in terms of sales, 72,000 units at minimum, and 255,000 at most, according to Bender. Wooden Horse takes on multiple games in a year. 255,000 at most. Didn't Against the Storm sell well? No? Thought they were like posting some reports about more. But I guess that one is their biggest one, I would say. Hey Clever, hello. If one game does well, the publisher is good while it works on smaller games that might not completely recoup those costs. That hasn't happened yet, but it will. We won't achieve a 100%. Eventually we'll have a problem. We know nothing's perfect, but we are going to aim for 100%, and we're going to get as close as we can to make sure that every single developer ends up with a good result. In the end, though, it's about supporting developer to make sure they have the time, money, and resources to get their best result. The game needs to be delayed, allow them to delay it. If the game is in the best shape, it gets the appropriate amount of resources and marketed to the correct audiences, it has a good shot of making money and making developers happy. And in the end, that's the publisher's job. True. I didn't say like what's their model though. That's the thing. Like they said, the typical model is bad, but they didn't say what's their model though. Well, that they kinda didn't mention. Alright, mark this one as red. There we go. Alright, let's see what else do we have. What else did I have real quick? Coffee's still in the making. Oh, let's try this one actually, from kinda relevant to a little bit of Unity experiments recently. Now let's see. What I learned making a small game. Follow up to a previous post. I wanted to focus more on game design lessons instead of talking about my experience with my tools. Small game called Harvest Move, an arcade puzzle harvesting game where you have to harvest as many plants as possible without getting killed by crows and other creatures. Games played on board where you move on tiles. Creatures can kill you moving in predefined patterns. To succeed in the game, you must carefully plan your next move, a little bit like chess. Also need to learn the creature's pattern is not to collide with them. Plants of various value will spawn on the board randomly. Let's see. A desktop web browser version even. I'll see. I guess that's what I learned. Can't really know if an idea is actually fun until you prototype it. True. The initial idea for Harvest Move was a bit different than what I ended up making. Originally, player would have to plant limited number of seeds and move around the board for them to grow. Time would only pass when the player made a step. Once the plants grew, they would be available for harvesting for a limited amount of time before starting to decay. If you collected a decayed plant, you would gain 3 seeds to try to plant again. If you collect a fully grown plant, it would count as a 1 crop harvested. It's actually kind of okay idea in general though. Well, like on paper. Thought the game idea would be fun because you had to manage your seeds and adopt a balanced strategy between harvesting all grown plants and waiting for some to decay to gain more seeds to plant again. Now that one is actually kind of bad. I think the good part was like planting and then you just need to move to pass time, or like do something to pass time. That I think is fun. When you need to balance this like planting for seeds or planting for kind of like results, that is already a bit not fun. Because that's where the overheat is coming, I feel, when you decide what to do. In practice, game was tedious. A planting phase wasn't fun at all. Yep. Yeah, welcome back, Nick. Playtest with others. Only realized how bad my game was going to be when I let my brother play it. Could see with my own eyes how boring it was to play. However, I noticed that he had fun avoiding the crow enemy. I just started to the game. This is where I realized that I needed to pivot to something else, or I would risk making a boring game. If your initial vision doesn't work, you can always pivot. Making games can be a very fun experimental process. Ended up removing the planting phase plus plant decay mechanic in favor of moving to avoid enemies. Then I gave my brother the game to play and collected any feedback. Then I refined the gameplay and repeated the same process. In the end, I ended up with a game albeit different than what I originally wanted, but at least it was fun to play. I reduced the role of randomness as much as possible. Realizing my game dev journey, I used randomness a lot, but that was due to laziness. It's easier to give illusion of a rich gameplay by using randomness. Also realized that players don't like it because it takes away control from them. I mean, it kinda is not completely false, but it really depends on case-to-case basis. Yeah, so it could be that. Could be that. Thinking about it makes total sense. Game is the only medium in which the consumer can do things is put in charge. But then again, there's like a whole bunch of those, card games, dice games, all that stuff that succeed being pretty much fully RNG based. So I think it is also not that, one-sided there. There is a lot of ifs in that one. And someone who plays a lot of those card games and everything especially. And I can also say that I dislike RNG. Yeah, but the thing with with some games, sometimes kind of depends. Especially if the game is aimed on replayability, I think RNG might be kind of necessary. Just because otherwise replayability gonna be very low. And then there's thing, for example, like I think Artifact actually, the infamous Artifact, the card game. What it did is that they added this like, I forgot how it was. It was like some sort of like when you were playing something, there was like a direction. There was like 3 lines, right, and stuff. And there was like a direction that it could take with different chances or something. That was pretty much almost the only RNG. I don't remember how draw was working there, because draw usually is RNG in every card game, right? Obviously. But I don't remember. Maybe there was ways to control it. I don't remember that. But that was like specifically added this thing with like, with the directions. And I even remember like the pre-release, like when everyone was hyped, Artifact is coming, watching, it's like, well, this is there just to add this like little RNG element, because if there will be no RNG element, then it will be just like pure 100% like skill dependent. So if it would be, like someone with one deck versus another with like the counter deck with unequal skill levels, the one with the counter deck will win 100%, right? If it's someone with like a little better skill level versus someone with a little worse skill level, that's win 100%. So it's literally just like mechanic added just to give a chance, even in like the shit situation, to still kind of win, and even in like the good situation still kind of lose, to give a chance to people, like, so you just like get into match and you see, oh shit, this guy has this deck, I have this deck, or I might just, concede and leave, which still happens even with RNG sometimes. But yeah, I feel like in some situations it's just kind of like a little bit of a necessary thing. Procedural RNG gotta have some in the most genres. Think so. Not sure about most genres, but I think like in some it's just kind of inevitable and kind of necessary. Like in roguelikes for sure, because I don't think you can make like a roguelike with crazy amount of replayability without any RNG. It's just impossible. Like it's just too much content, you know. Yes, these do, I see. Now, even what I'm like envisioning right now from my game, right, with encounters and stuff, like getting it fully predefined, it's just gonna be like kind of not that fun. Like if every encounter you will have, you will know what's gonna happen, and then you also know what's the best result for that encounter, right? When you have like the whole route, for example, and you like have like first choice, first encounter, where you like pick, you know, like I don't know, like sword versus like gun or something, or like sword versus mace, like blunt and the blade weapon, right? And then you know already the next encounter is gonna be like skeletons and stuff, so you kind of want to take blunt just because it will be more damage versus skeletons. But when you don't know it, then it's kind of not all that one-sided, you know. So one run you can try this and it worked. Other run you can try to do this again. Boom, you got different enemies and it kind of sucks now. So you kind of like learn to not rely on things too much, and then you kind of like experiment more, I guess, instead of trying to find some sort of like, well, you still kind of try to find some cheese, right? To just be destroying through everything anyway. But at least that way you kind of know that it's not so simple to do it. Don't like losing combat due to RNG. That is kind of true. That I do agree, actually, yeah. Even though, again, it kind of depends, though. I feel like it depends what you're coming for in the game. And how you lose to RNG. Because like in Runeterra, for example, when I was playing like competitively and stuff on high ranks, you kind of already know what's gonna happen. The chances that something gonna be like, well, like you already kind of know what to expect. Always used to be back in the day, right? Like you see the deck, you know what to expect. There are top decks and stuff, obviously, right? But it's still kind of like was less molding. But Hearthstone, yes, in Hearthstone, that was awful. That I agree. Like Yogg Saron or whatever, right? Just throw that you threw the legendary card, right? And that just like threw your game because it went, you know, destroyed your board and then like pyroblasted you in the face and killed you or something. Like, bro, I'm playing this shit against him, not the other way around. I'm winning already. So sometimes you literally just like don't even play it because you're already winning. So why would you know, why would you take chances? So it's quite often like not exactly like the win condition, but more like something you just kind of hold so you can like come back from completely bad situation. Just because you throw it out and it gets good RNG, you just instantly like flip the tables. It gets bad RNG when you're already losing anyway, so like goodbye. Yeah, in some cases it's too much. But again, I feel like a lot of people actually like it because Hearthstone is still like more popular than any other card game, really. Partially, obviously, because of like different modes that they added and stuff, right? The battlegrounds and everything, but still, even before that, it still was like mostly popular because of that anyway. Alrighty, Steve. Alrighty, enjoy, man. Let's see. Something I tried to do in my game. Initially, crows and other creatures would respawn randomly on the board. I removed that. Also tried to randomize the crow movement, but ended up removing it. It was a very good choice to stick with predictable patterns. This made it that if you lost, it was your fault and not some random event that was responsible for it. It also became a game of skill, which was really fun. You know, that's the thing, like when you like just need to figure out the pattern, how to move it to not get killed by something, based by predictable patterns of enemies and stuff. That's a different story. That's already kind of puzzle game, right? You don't want to, we had already one of postmortems before about the puzzle game that actually had RNG involved. And in puzzle games, you don't want that, that's for sure. Well, the dude actually explained, because it was like a puzzle game that you're supposed to kind of solve as a puzzle, but it also RNG, so sometimes you can like, very first puzzles, you can just like get like really good RNG and just basically kind of like solve it instantly, pretty much, right? And people just kind of like were thinking that that's kind of how it's supposed to be, that everything is RNG based, so they were kind of like trying to do the same, some kind of like dumb things, hoping for RNG to happen, and when it's not happening, they were molding and just quitting. Instead of realizing that, it's not about RNG, it's a puzzle, they just got lucky on the first time and stuff. So like puzzle games and stuff, yeah, you probably don't really want too much RNG. In the end, only randomness had in my game was for which plant was spawned where, but how you would get to this plant was entirely determined by your own skill. Lesson I learned from all of this is that randomness should be mitigated as much as possible, but there are still some places where it makes sense to have it. Glad I went with pixel art. After my prototype using rectangles was done, fellow rectangle enjoyer, it was time to do the art. Not that bad of an artist, so I initially tried to hand draw the art, immediately backtracked because my game was starting to look like a Flash game. I could do better, but it would take me too much time. I went the pixel art route. What I learned is that it's easier to look more professional, but the colors can make and break the pixel art. Each pixel has so much impact. Received some feedback that the player didn't recognize the rat enemy as being a rat. I guess there is still room for improvement. Alright. Should have put more thought into sound design. But I started to get tired of the project, so I quickly took some public domain sounds and put them in my game. This is something I wish I did better. Sounds can have a huge impact on how enjoyable a game is. For example, it could make player movement really satisfying. Conclusion, in the end, I'm glad I made this game because I demonstrated to myself that I could make something fun and, more importantly, finish something. Anyone reading this will be able to get something out of it. True. But with randomness, yeah, not sure. With randomness, I feel like sometimes in some games you kind of like, the chances to hit and stuff like this. There are some things that I really 100% dislike, no matter what, is the skill checks, as I said before. Like you have like a chest, the lockpicks check, and you have like 70% chance to open it at skill like 5, but you have skill 3, so you have low chance to open it. So for some people it just becomes, the save and load fiesta and saves come farm just to get that chance to hit. And also if you invested a lot in the skill, but you're not saves coming, for example, like I did in Wasteland 1 playthrough, for example, when I wasn't saves coming on skill checks, and then you can just like have all the skill and then you still fail. And that doesn't feel fucking good. My favorite was the Wasteland 1. In the end of the game, there was a save with the save cracking, because save cracking and lockpicking is different in Wasteland, 2 different skills you level. It was not lockpicking, something else, but save cracking was a separate skill basically. And that one was like 10 save cracking, I think, you needed for that. And the chance to do it was like 10% or 15% or something to succeed. So you maxed out the skill. You can't go any higher. And you still have such a low chance to actually succeed. At least it was good because safe cracking, I think it was safe cracking and lockpicking, 2 of them. And if you level it on 1 character, which I did, you get the perk that prevents, like the critical failure basically. So you can't like jam the lock by trying it too much. So you at least could try. And I literally on stream just was sitting for, I don't know, like 15 minutes or something probably. Just doing that save. Just clicking it and looking at it, how it gets cracked. With maxed out skill. That I strongly dislike. That stuff I strongly dislike.